Did you know Imagine by John Lennon was banned in South Africa during apartheid? And In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins faced restrictions during the Gulf War. From global hits to controversial tracks, these songs were silenced for their powerful messages. Get ready to uncover the shocking stories behind 24 songs that face the ultimate censorship. Let's watch it. It's fascinating. Imagine. You probably never thought this peace-promoting anthem could be censored, but that is exactly what happened to John Lennon's composition when the lines, "Imagine there's no heaven" and "no religion too" were interpreted as an apology for atheism by religious groups. In 2017, Imagine was once again in the spotlight when a group of students at a school in Pakistan who planned to sing it were banned from doing so because the lyrics included references to atheism and the non-existence of heaven and hell. Let's remember that Pakistan is a country where religion is of utmost importance to the population. So the criticism was swift when the general population branded the students' parents as slaves to Western thinking. In fact, the controversy reached unimaginable levels when the song was removed from hundreds of radio stations across the country, causing millions of Pakistanis to lose the opportunity to hear John Lennon's most emblematic composition. Do you think it was justifiable to censor Imagine? Don't forget to leave your opinion in the comments. In the Air Tonight. Here we have another song that does not have offensive content in its lyrics, but was still subject to censorship for fear of public reaction in case of misinterpretation during the socio-political events of the time. As soon as the Gulf War began in 1990, the BBC pulled a total of 67 songs from the airwaves, including this Phil Collins melody for a rather strange reason. The radio station directors believed that its lyrics might remind listeners of the lethal Scud missiles used by Iraqi forces against coalition soldiers led by Britain and the United States. For this reason, they kept In the Air Tonight off the air, believing that the families of soldiers on the front lines might be offended by the idea of missiles flying through the air. The censorship did not end there. After the 9/11 attacks and the subsequent war in Afghanistan, Clear Channel Communications, owner of thousands of radio stations, banned In the Air Tonight again for the same reason as during the Gulf War. Phil Collins immediately defended his composition, stating that the lyrics do not mention violence or war, as it is actually about the pain he felt after divorcing his first wife. Despacito. Despacito, quiero desnudarte a besos despacito. Luis Fonsi and Daddy Yankee broke all cultural barriers with this iconic super hit, as it not only became a musical phenomenon in Latin America, but also turned into an anthem heard in every corner of the planet. However, this whirlwind of rhythm and melodies encountered an unexpected obstacle in Malaysia, where the country's conservative tradition led authorities to take the drastic decision to ban the song from state radio stations, arguing that the song's provocative lyrics were inappropriate. The country's communications minister declared that Despacito was banned following a flood of complaints from the public, most of whom follow conservative Islamic customs. At the same time, Malaysia's most influential politicians criticized the song, considering it harmful to the development of children and adolescents due to its explicit content. This measure was not limited to state radio stations, as authorities also urged private radio stations not to broadcast it. Despite the controversy, music lovers in Malaysia still found refuge on platforms like Spotify, where Despacito continued to play strongly, reminding us that the power of music transcends all borders and cultural barriers. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. In 1967, the Beatles were already accustomed to controversy. After all, this was the band that offended millions when John Lennon declared that they were more popular than Jesus. With all eyes on them, their next releases were bound to be controversial, as happened with this song whose title forms the acronym of a prohibited substance known for causing hallucinogenic effects. Many claimed that this reference was no coincidence, especially when considering the psychedelic theme of the album Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Therefore, critics and fans believed that the song reflected the influence of these substances on the music and lyrics of the Liverpool Quartet. For his part, John Lennon always insisted that the song had nothing to do with harmful substances and that the lyrics were inspired by a drawing by his son Julian depicting his school friend named Lucy. Despite the clarifications, the mystery and fascination around the song endure, making Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds one of the most enigmatic and debated stories in rock history. Satisfaction. In 1965, the iconic song by the Rolling Stones was pulled from the radio due to its supposedly provocative lyrics. This led the band, led by Mick Jagger, to face harsh criticism for the suggestive insinuations in the song and its strong statement against commercialism, while Newsweek magazine described the single as full of tasteless themes. The censorship did not stop there, as the American television network ABC applied the censorship beep on one of the lines during a national broadcast. Even the band's record label tried to soften the impact of the song, asking the sound engineer to lower the volume of Mick Jagger's voice. Nonetheless, the efforts to silence the rebelliousness and authenticity of Satisfaction only fueled its popularity among the youth of the 60s. In an ironic twist of fate, this song was the only one not censored during the Rolling Stones halftime show at the 2006 Super Bowl, demonstrating the significant socio-cultural changes humanity has experienced in recent decades. Like a Prayer. Madonna has never been a stranger to controversy, but in 1989, she outdid herself when she starred in the biggest scandal of her career with this song that still sparks heated conversations today. 35 years ago, she released the music video for the song, which was actually a short film featuring burning crosses and an African-American Jesus. As soon as these scenes hit television, the Catholic Church and thousands of Christian believers expressed their rejection of Madonna's composition, and even Pope John Paul II joined the criticism, urging the faithful to boycott the singer. The negative reaction didn't stop there. Pepsi, which had signed a lucrative contract with the Material Girl, decided to pull a commercial featuring the artist that cost $5 million. Additionally, the beverage company canceled its sponsorship of her upcoming concert tour. Faced with criticism and calls for a boycott, Madonna remained unfazed and took advantage of the negative publicity to turn Like a Prayer into one of the greatest hits of her career, reaching #1 on the charts in dozens of countries around the world. Light My Fire. Reaching the #1 position on the Billboard Hot 100 chart guaranteed the Doors an invitation to The Ed Sullivan Show, a television program that featured the top musicians of the 60s, including Elvis Presley and the Beatles. Therefore, performing on a show watched by tens of millions of viewers was a sure ticket to stardom. On September 17, 1967, the group led by Jim Morrison was ready for their performance, but there was a problem. The ever-unpredictable vocalist was unwilling to change a line in Light My Fire that supposedly mentioned prohibited substances. Just 15 minutes before going on air, Jim promised to change the lyrics to satisfy the host, but as soon as the cameras started rolling and the lights came on, the singer unleashed his rebellious spirit by performing the original lyrics. As expected, Ed Sullivan banished them from his show forever, but this did not prevent the Doors from becoming one of the greatest bands of the 60s. Creep. Radiohead's debut single, released in 1992, was banned by the BBC, which found it too depressing and censorable for including the F-word in its lyrics. Known for banning songs with sexual content or references to prohibited substances, the BBC was ridiculed this time for refusing to air Creep due to its somber tone. To make the song more acceptable to the audience and radio station directors, Radiohead released an edited version that removed the controversial word. Amazingly, they managed to overcome the censorship, and Creep reached #7 on the UK singles chart. The negative publicity also served as the perfect catalyst to launch their career on both sides of the Atlantic. Space Oddity. On July 11, 1969, David Bowie released this song, which became one of the main milestones of his long and historic career. The song, which coincided with the Apollo 11 mission to the moon, narrated the story of Major Tom and his journey to the Earth's satellite. Suddenly, he communicates to ground control that his spacecraft has suffered a malfunction and is drifting in space with no hope of return. Described as a beautiful and somber mix, the BBC was reluctant to air such an unsettling song just as Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins ventured into the depths of space. The fear that space oddity would bring bad luck to the mission and the real possibility that the astronauts might share Major Tom's tragic fate led the BBC to ban it during the crucial days of the Apollo 11 mission. Only after the astronauts returned safely did Bowie's song begin to air on the radio. It gained so much notoriety among listeners that it reached number 5 on the UK singles chart and became an anthem that captured the wonder and uncertainty of space exploration. I Want to Break Free.
God knows I want to break free.
This music video by Queen shows its members dressed as women because it is a parody of Coronation Street, one of the most popular British soap operas of all time. While the UK audience laughed heartily, across the Atlantic in the United States, the joke was not well received. The lack of cultural understanding led MTV to refuse to air the video because they focused only on the 4 men dressed as women, missing the humorous context. Years later, the band's guitarist Brian May explained that they simply dressed as the characters from the soap opera and managed to make the British audience laugh with their imitation. However, cultural differences meant that in the United States, a conservative attitude prevailed, which did not allow the appearance of men dressed as women on television. Even more incredible was the violent reaction from the public in Brazil. During a concert in the South American country, Freddie Mercury appeared on stage wearing the outfit he used in the video and was greeted with a rain of stones. Therefore, this embarrassing episode underscores how cultural barriers and prejudices can turn an act of humor and creativity into a trigger for violence and rejection. God Only Knows. Part of the award-winning album Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys, this song is undoubtedly one of the band's most emblematic tracks. Therefore, it is strange that at the time of its release in 1966, there was concern about the use of the word God, as some people thought that a rock song mentioning God's name would only do so to blaspheme. The band's leader, Brian Wilson, commented that many radio stations were afraid of the public's reaction, while in some of the more conservative areas of the southern United States, it was completely banned without even being listened to for its message. A few weeks later, when the media verified that God Only Knows was not blasphemous, it was saved from censorship, and over the years transformed into a music legend. In addition to being included in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it occupied the number 11 position on Rolling Stone magazine's list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. My Generation. One of the great rock anthems of the 60s by The Who was not banned for its use of profane or provocative language, but for a peculiar reason. At that time, the BBC in England considered the part where Roger Daltrey pronounces the word fade as if he were stuttering offensive to people who suffer from these involuntary speech interruptions. The BBC's decision to pull the song from the major radio stations in the UK did not manage to silence the youthful fervor, as pirate radio stations that defied the rules and played all the banned songs continued to broadcast My Generation around the clock. Eventually, popular pressure and the overwhelming success of the song made the BBC relent. The Who's song immediately reached number 2 on the UK singles chart and became a generational anthem that captured the spirit of the 60s. Physical. In September 1981, Olivia Newton-John released the most emblematic song of her career, whose impact elevated it to the number 1 position on the charts in the UK, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the United States. What today's youth may not know is that it faced rejection from hundreds or perhaps thousands of radio stations worldwide that considered it too sexy. The actress-turned-singer explained that she didn't think much of the lyrics when she first read them. It was only after recording and listening to it for the first time that she realized the double entendre of the lyrics. Feeling extremely concerned about the explicit content, she asked her producer not to release it. Despite her reservations, the song was released without modifying the lyrics. Immediately, conservative radio stations refused to air it, claiming that its erotic content was not suitable for young people. Even so, This did not prevent it from becoming one of the most listened to songs of the year and cemented Olivia Newton-John as one of the boldest figures in pop music. If You Seek Amy. After her infamous collapse that led her to spend some time in rehab, Britney Spears returned to the music scene in 2008 with this song, loaded with such provocative lyrics that it unleashed a storm of controversy and criticism as soon as it hit the radio stations. One of the main proponents of the boycott was the Parents Television Council, which filed indecency complaints with the United States Federal Communications Commission. A spokesperson for this organization declared that the lyrics were an allegory to intimate relationships and demanded that radio stations remove the song from the airwaves between 6 a.m. and 7 p.m., claiming it violated broadcast indecency laws. At the same time, criticisms focused on the phonetic interpretation of the chorus, which when pronounced quickly, sounded like an explicit sexual phrase. Although If You Seek Amy was temporarily banned from broadcast media, the multiple criticisms did not stop its success, and in fact, the song benefited from the scandal, placing it among the top 20 most listened to songs on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Judas. The New Yorker has always been synonymous with controversy, but in 2011 she outdid herself with Judas, a Christian-themed song that ignited a media and social storm. This was all due to the provocative lines where the pop star declares her love for Judas, a historically controversial figure in Christianity, even going so far as to say, "I'm in love with Judas." Religion, which has always been a delicate and deeply rooted topic in most cultures, was shaken by this controversial declaration. As a result, several Christian groups worldwide mobilized to call for a ban on the song and a boycott of the diva's concerts, claiming that its message was blasphemous. The wave of rejection was not limited to Western countries, as the reaction in the Islamic world was equally intense. For example, in Indonesia, government authorities flatly denied her permission to hold a concert in their territory, arguing that the suggestive nature of her show and the lyrics of Judas would undermine the country's morals. Meanwhile, Lebanon went even further by banning the entire album, Born This Way, which includes Judas. Despite all the uproar and bans, Lady Gaga once again demonstrated that music can be a disruptive and powerful force, capable of challenging norms, provoking debates, and keeping society in constant reflection about its values and beliefs. Mayores. If there is one genre that replaced rock as the most controversial, it is definitely reggaeton. This time, it was Becky G who faced censorship and was forced to modify the lyrics of her hit song Mayores before performing on the Spanish TV show Operación Triunfo. The original lyrics that say, "Que no me quepa en la boca los besos que quiera darme," were softened for television. So during her live performance, Becky G had to recite the phrase, "Que con un beso en la boca me haga volar en el aire." This alteration not only shocked her followers, but also sparked a wave of debates about freedom of expression in music, especially by the Californian singer, who did not remain silent. In a subsequent interview, she denounced the censorship as a clear case of sexism and argued that if it had been a male singer, the producers of Operación Triunfo would not have demanded such a drastic change in the lyrics of his song. In short, this episode demonstrated once again that reggaeton is not just a musical genre, but also a battlefield where cultural and social norms are challenged and redefined, while Becky G showed that even in the 21st century, gender inequality still exists in the music industry. Quattro Babies. In 2016, Maluma released a song that unleashed a storm of controversies as soon as it hit radio stations and streaming platforms. On that occasion, more than 20,000 people signed a petition to have it taken off the air, claiming it demeaned women and promoted gender violence. Both the lyrics and the video for Quattro Babies were harshly criticized by journalists and feminist groups, who pointed out that it represented women as mere bodies without value and available at the singer's whim. At the same time, the imagery and message of the song were interpreted by its detractors as a negative reflection of macho culture and the objectification of women. Maluma defended himself by stating that he was not the composer of Quattro Babies, and maintained that despite all the negative criticism, he would continue to perform it live, arguing that trap is a very popular musical genre in the streets, and that he was simply reflecting that reality in his music. Decidete. No one would imagine that a performer of romantic songs like Luis Miguel would fall victim to censorship, but that is precisely what happened 40 years ago with the song Decidete. While in his native country, the lyrics were interpreted as a romantic story about a young girl who could not decide to start a relationship with the music star. In Spain, the reception was completely different. The song generated so much controversy that there are two different versions. In the first variant, the 13-year-old singer explored a new facet of life, mentioning that when he is alone at home, he remembers and dreams about the body of his beloved. These words were considered too explicit for some markets, especially in Spain, where the media feared it was inappropriate for young audiences. The second, less explicit version transformed the narrative into a tender romance between two young people just discovering love. Instead of dreaming about the girl's body, the lyrics were modified to say he dreamed about her eyes. Estamos clear. In June 2018, the Public Entertainment Commission of the Dominican Republic made a strong and controversial decision. The song Estamos Clear by Bad Bunny and Mikey Woods was removed from radio and television because, according to the government body, its vulgar content made it inappropriate for the country's youth and adolescents. The commission explained that the lyrics were not suitable for public broadcasting due to their high obscene sexual content, incitement to violence, and promotion of substance abuse. Thus, the ban covered any broadcast on radio and television throughout the Dominican territory, and was also a hard blow for the fans of these artists who felt censored. However, the measure did not completely silence the rebellious voice of Bad Bunny and Mikey Woods, as despite the media censorship, the government measure did not affect live performances, causing Estamos Clear to play live stronger than ever before, thousands of fans eager to hear their favorite artists. Egoista. The song from the album Carpe Diem by Belinda, featuring rapper Pitbull, marked a bold shift in the singer's career, known until then for her youth-oriented songs. However, controversy soon followed because in Argentina, some radio stations censored the tune due to a line where the Mexican singer says, "Abriste fuego en mí, maldito Cromañón." This line became a flashpoint as it recalled the tragic fire at the República Cromañón nightclub in Buenos Aires, where 194 young people lost their lives on December 30th, 2004. The still open wound in the country's collective memory made the reference considered insensitive and painful, prompting Radio Disney Argentina to be one of the main stations proposing the censorship. Thus, each time Egoista was broadcast on the radio, one could clearly hear how the word Cromañón was silenced in order not to rekindle the painful memory of that fateful incident. La Granja. In 2009, the popular band Los Tigres del Norte released this song which, although it didn't make direct references, was interpreted by many as a possible apology for crime, suggesting that the lyrics were written from the perspective of drug traffickers. Since its release, La Granja was embroiled in so much controversy that some radio stations decided to omit it from their broadcasts, forcing fans of the group to seek it out through other means. That same year, the band won the Lunas Award for Grupera Music, but their victory was marred by a disagreement with the event organizers, who asked them not to perform La Granja live during the ceremony. Although they were eventually given the green light to sing the song, Los Tigres del Norte decided not to attend the awards in person, in protest against the censorship they faced. Now tell me, which songs were banned in your country? Leave your opinion in the comments. Here are two options you'll surely love.